You've found the Stealth Podcast. Where are you watching from? What time is it there? Subscribe and comment to support us. Thanks. Let's begin. Dust swirls around my van's tires as I pull into a clearing off Murphy Canyon Road, the San Diego sun dipping low, painting the hills gold. I'm Elias Warwick, 32 years old, from Oceanside, about 40 miles north. Nora, my girlfriend, 29, is in the passenger seat, humming along to some indie tune. We've been van-lifing for a year, chasing freedom in our converted Sprinter. Tonight, we're meeting 4 college friends: Jasper, 34, a loudmouth mechanic; Lila, 26, a free-spirited artist; Theo, 30, a tech bro with a chip on his shoulder; and Marin, 36, a nurse who's always got a wild story. They're from San Diego, so Murphy Canyon's their turf. We're here to camp, grill some burgers, and catch up. The canyon's quiet, just rolling hills and eucalyptus trees, but something feels off, like the air's too still. Nora's unpacking our cooler, her dark hair catching the fading light, when Jasper's truck roars up, kicking gravel everywhere. He's got this grin, like he's already up to no good. Lila's next, her VW bus rattling like it's on its last legs. Theo and Marin carpool in Theo's sleek Tesla, looking out of place in this rugged spot. We've all got history: late-night college parties, dumb bets, that time Jasper borrowed a professor's car for a joyride. They're rebellious, sure, but fun. Or so I thought. We set up camp near a dry creek bed, the kind you see in those creepy horror flicks where bad stuff goes down. I shake it off, blaming my nerves. Nora's laughing as Lila sketches the sunset, but Jasper's already cracking open beers, eyeing me weirdly. The campfire's crackling now, casting shadows on the canyon walls. Jasper's telling some story about a bar fight, his voice too loud, like he's performing. Theo's quieter than usual, scrolling his phone, muttering about bad reception. Marin's passing around a flask, her laugh sharp, almost forced. Nora's sticking close to me, sensing the vibes off too. I try to keep things light, tossing a frisbee, but it lands in the brush, and Lila doesn't fetch it. She just stares, her eyes glinting. "You scared of the dark, Elias?" she teases, but it's not playful. It's like she's testing me. The canyon feels too big, too empty, swallowing our voices. I tell myself it's just the wilderness playing tricks, but my gut's screaming something's wrong. We're grilling hot dogs, the smoky smell mixing with pine. Jasper's getting rowdy, tossing empty cans into the fire, sparks flying like tiny warnings. Theo's muttering about some local legend, a drifter who haunts the canyon, supposedly. I laugh it off, but Nora's grip on my hand tightens. She's from a small town, used to ghost stories, but this feels different. Marin's watching us, her smile crooked, like she knows something we don't. I'm starting to regret this trip. These guys were always a bit wild, but tonight, it's like they're feeding off each other's energy, egging each other on. I catch Jasper whispering to Lila, their heads close, and my stomach twists. Why'd I think this would be a normal weekend? The stars are out now, sharp against the black sky, but the canyon feels alive in a disturbing way, like it's watching us. I'm no stranger to camping, grew up hiking in Joshua Tree, but this place has a heaviness I can't shake. Nora's trying to keep things normal, roasting marshmallows, but even she's glancing at the shadows. Jasper's pacing now, restless, like a dog before a storm. Theo's still on his phone, but he's not texting. He's filming us, his lens lingering too long. Marin's telling a story about a patient who saw things before dying, her voice low, almost gleeful. I want to call it a night, but the van's 100 yards off, and the path back feels too dark, too exposed. I'm starting to notice little things, like how Lila's sketchbook isn't full of sunsets, but weird, jagged shapes that look like claws. Jasper's got a knife out, cleaning it, but he's staring at me, not the blade. Theo's muttering about testing limits, whatever that means. Nora's whispering we should leave, but I don't want to seem paranoid in front of these guys. They're my friends, right? We've known each other forever. But the way they're acting, it's like they're in on some joke I'm not part of. The fire's dying down, and the cold's creeping in, but it's not just the temperature making me shiver. It's the feeling we're not alone out here, and my friends aren't themselves. I try to focus on the practical, check the van's gas, make sure our gear's secure. But every time I turn my back, I feel eyes on me. Nora's sticking close, Her usual spark dimmed. She's tough, grew up surfing big waves, but she's spooked. Elias, they're acting weird, she whispers, her voice barely audible over the crackling fire. I nod, trying to play it cool, but my heart's racing. Jasper's laughter cuts through the night. Too loud, too sharp, like he's daring something to answer. The canyon's silent, but it's not peaceful. It's the kind of quiet that hides something scary. I tell myself I'm overreacting, but deep down, I know this night's about to go sideways. By midnight, the mood shifted completely. Jasper's tossing rocks into the dark, each one landing with a thud that echoes too long. Lila stopped sketching and is just staring into the fire, her face blank. Theo's filming again, zooming in on Nora's face, and when I tell him to cut it out, he just smirks. Marin's humming some tune I don't recognize, and it's giving me chills. I grab Nora's hand, ready to suggest we head to the van, but Jasper steps in front of us, his knife catching the firelight. Going somewhere? He asks, his voice low, almost mocking. My mouth goes dry. This isn't the Jasper I know. Something's wrong with them, and the canyon's closing in, ready to swallow us whole. Jasper's standing too close, his knife glinting like it's got a life of its own. I'm frozen, Nora's hand tight in mine, her breath quick. Just heading to the van, I say, trying to sound casual, but my voice cracks. Jasper laughs, a sharp, ugly sound, and steps aside, but his eyes follow us like a predator. The canyon's dark now, the fire a faint glow behind us. I can hear Lila whispering to Theo, their words too low to catch. My gut's screaming to get out, but the van's parked down a narrow trail, and I'm not sure I trust these guys to let us leave. Nora's tugging my arm, her eyes wide. Elias, let's go now, she hisses. I nod, but part of me wants to confront Jasper, figure out what's wrong. Bad call, maybe. We're halfway to the van when Marin calls out. Don't be boring, Elias. Her voice is playful, but there's an edge, like she's daring me to stay. I ignore her, focusing on the path, but the shadows seem to move, twisting in ways that mess with my head. Nora's flashlight shakes in her hand, catching glints of eyes, probably animals, but it's disturbing as hell. I've camped in creepy places before, like that time in Anza-Borrego when coyotes howled all night, but this feels different. It's not just the canyon, it's my friends. Theo's still filming, his phone's light bobbing behind us. Why is he doing that? I want to grab it and smash it, but that'd escalate things. Instead, I pick up the pace, Nora stumbling beside me. The van's in sight, a silver lifeline in the moonlight, but something's off. The side door's ajar, and I know I locked it. My heart's pounding like a drum. Did you open it? I whisper to Nora. She shakes her head, her face pale. I'm thinking maybe raccoons, but then I see footprints in the dirt, big, human ones. My mind flashes to those horror stories about campers getting stalked, like that couple in Yosemite who vanished. I tell myself it's just Jasper messing with us, but the prints lead into the brush, not back to camp. Nora's breathing hard, and I'm trying to stay calm for her. I grab a tire iron from the van's toolbox, just in case. The weight feels good, solid, but not enough to shake the dread creeping up my spine. I'm checking the van's interior when I hear laughter. Lila's, high and unhinged, echoing through the canyon. It's not funny, it's scary, like she's laughing at something we can't see. Nora's climbing into the driver's seat, keys in hand, but I'm not ready to bolt yet. We need to talk to them, I say, stupidly thinking I can reason with these guys. Nora's eyes flash with fear. Elias, they're not right. Let's just go. She's got a point. Nora's always been the sensible one, like when she talked me out of surfing during a storm. But I'm stubborn, thinking I can fix this. I step out, tire iron in hand, and call out to Jasper. Big mistake. He's there in seconds, too fast, with Lila and Theo flanking him, their faces blank but eyes gleaming. They're standing in a loose circle around the van, like they're boxing us in. Jasper's twirling his knife, casual but threatening. What's the rush, man? He says, his voice low, almost a growl. Theo's still filming, and Lila's holding her sketchbook, those claw-like drawings visible even in the dark. Marin's behind them, humming that same creepy tune. I'm kicking myself for not listening to Nora earlier. My phone's got no signal, typical for a canyon, but it feels like the world's cut us off. I glance at Nora, who's gripping the steering wheel, ready to peel out. But the trail's narrow, and I'm worried they'll block us. The air's thick, like the canyon's holding its breath, waiting for something horrible to happen. I try talking, keep it light. Guys, what's up? You're freaking us out. Lila tilts her head, like a dog hearing a strange sound, and says, "You're the ones acting weird, Elias." Her voice is wrong. Too calm, too cold. Theo zooms in on my face, and I swat at his phone, but he dodges, laughing. Jasper steps closer, his knife catching the moonlight. "You scared yet?" he asks, and it's not a question, it's a promise. My heart's racing, and I'm regretting every choice that led us here. Nora's whispering, "Get in, now." But I'm rooted, staring at Jasper. He's not the guy I knew. None of them are. The canyon's silent, but I swear I hear something moving in the brush, something big. I'm about to climb into the van when Marin grabs my arm, her grip too tight. "Stay, Elias. It's just getting fun." Her nails dig in, and I yank free, my skin stinging. Nora's yelling now, "Elias, move." I'm halfway in when Jasper lunges, not at me, but at the van's door, slamming it shut. This sounds like a gunshot in the quiet. My tire iron's useless if I can't get space to swing it. Theo's filming, Lila's sketching, and Marin's humming, all in sync, like some messed up ritual. I'm thinking of that horror movie, The Hills Have Eyes, where friends turn on each other in the desert. This feels like that, but worse, because these are my friends. The van's engine roars as Nora starts it, but Jasper's leaning against the door, grinning. We're trapped, and the canyon's watching. I shove Jasper hard, surprising him, and he stumbles back. Nora floors it, the van lurching forward, but the trail's too tight, and we clip a rock, the jolt shaking us. I'm yelling at Nora to keep going, but I see Lila running alongside, her sketchbook flapping, her face twisted in a way that's not human. My mind's racing. Did they plan this? Are they high? Or is something in this canyon messing with them? The footprints by the van flash in my mind, and I wonder if it's not just them we're running from. The air's heavy, oppressive, like it's pushing us down. Nora's crying, steering with one hand, holding my arm with the other. We're moving, but not fast enough, and the laughter behind us is getting louder, more disturbing, like it's not just coming from them. We're rattling down the trail, the van's shocks screaming as Nora swerves around rocks. My heart's in my throat, and the rearview mirror shows Jasper sprinting after us, his knife flashing. He's fast, too fast, like something's driving him. Lila's right behind, her sketchbook gone, her hands clawing the air. Theo's filming, his phone light bouncing like a horror movie spotlight. Marin's voice carries over the engine, that damn humming. Now a low chant that makes my skin crawl. This isn't just a prank. They're unhinged, possessed, or worse. I'm thinking of those news stories about cults in remote places, like that group in Arizona who lost it in the desert. This is Murphy Canyon, though, not some far-off wasteland. What the hell's happening? Nora's sobbing, her hands shaking on the wheel. "Elias, what's wrong with them?" she chokes out. "I don't know, but I'm gripping the tire iron, ready to smash anything that gets close." The van hits a rut, and we lurch, my head smacking the window. Pain shoots through me, but I'm more scared of what's behind us. Jasper's gaining, his face twisted, not angry but gleeful, like this is a game. Lila's screaming now, not words, just this raw, terrifying sound. I glance at the side mirror and see Theo's still filming, his eyes locked on us through the lens. It's disturbing, like he's not even human anymore. The canyon walls loom closer, the trail narrowing, and I'm praying we hit the main road soon. We're almost at the canyon's edge when something slams into the van's side. A rock, I think, but it's too precise. Another hits, cracking the back window. "They're throwing stuff," Nora yells, swerving. I look back and see Jasper hurling stones, each one hitting with scary accuracy. Lila's not running anymore. She's crouched, watching, like a hunter waiting for prey to tire. My mind's spinning, trying to make sense of it. Were they always like this, hiding some dark side? I remember Jasper's old pranks, like stealing my keys in college. But this is different. This is horror. Nora's hyperventilating, and I'm trying to calm her, but my own voice is shaking. The vans are only shot, but it feels like a trap closing around us. The trail opens up, and I see the faint glow of Murphy Canyon Road ahead. Hope spikes, but then the engine sputters, and the van slows. "No, no, no." Nora screams, slamming the dashboard. I'm thinking of every horror movie where the car fails at the worst moment, like Christine, but this is real. I check the gas gauge, half full, So it's not that. Something's wrong with the engine, maybe from that rock we hit. Jasper's closing in, his silhouette huge in the moonlight, and Lila's back on her feet, moving like a wolf. Theo's still filming, and Marin's chant is louder, echoing off the canyon walls. It's not just them. It's like the canyon itself is alive, pushing them to do this, making everything more terrifying. I'm fumbling under the hood in the dark, tire iron tucked in my belt, while Nora locks the doors. The engine's a mess. Wires cut clean, like someone sliced them with a knife. My blood runs cold. This wasn't an accident. They sabotaged us. I hear Jasper's laugh, closer now, and Lila's scream cuts through the night, raw and unhinged. I slam the hood down, my hands shaking, and climb back in. We're on foot, I tell Nora, hating the words. She's crying but nods, grabbing a flashlight. The canyon's pitch black, the road so close, but feeling miles away. I'm thinking of that time we got lost hiking in Big Sur, but this is worse. Those were just trees, not friends turned monsters chasing us with knives. We bolt from the van, Nora's flashlight beam bouncing wildly. The canyon's alive with sounds, crunching gravel, snapping twigs, and that damn chanting from Marin. Jasper's voice cuts through. You can't run forever, Elias. It's not just scary, it's personal, like he's been waiting for this. I'm pulling Nora through the brush, thorns tearing at our clothes. My mind's racing, piecing together their behavior. Jasper's knife, Lila's drawings, Theo's filming, Marin's humming. It's like they're part of some messed up ritual, and we're the sacrifice. I've read about group psychosis, like that cult in Jonestown, but this feels darker, like the canyon's feeding it. Nora trips, and I catch her, my heart hammering as their footsteps get closer. We're ducking behind a boulder, catching our breath, when I see something that stops me cold. In the moonlight, there's a symbol carved into a tree, jagged, like Lila's sketches, but bigger, fresh. It's not random, it's deliberate, disturbing, like a marker. I'm thinking of those true crime shows about serial killers leaving signs, but this feels older, primal. Nora's whispering, did they do that? I don't know, but it's freaking me out. Jasper's voice echoes again, closer, taunting. Come out, Elias. Let's play. My tire iron feels useless against whatever's driving them. The canyon's air is thick, like it's pressing down, and I swear I hear whispers that aren't theirs, coming from the dark. We need to move, but I'm not sure we're safe anymore. Lila's scream pierces the air again, closer, and I realize they're not just chasing, they're hurting us. The road's right there, maybe 100 yards, but the brush is thick, and Nora's limping, her ankle twisted. I'm carrying half her weight, my arm burning, but stopping's not an option. Theo's light flashes nearby, and I know he's still filming, like this is his twisted masterpiece. Marin's chanting is louder, almost hypnotic, and it's messing with my head, like it's pulling me back. I'm thinking of that time I got stuck in a riptide surfing, same panic, same fight to stay alive. But this is worse, because it's not just nature, it's my friends, or whatever they've become. The canyon's closing in, and the terror's real now, undeniable. We're scrambling through the brush, Nora's limp slowing us down, her flashlight flickering like it's giving up. My tire iron's heavy in my hand, but it's all I've got. Jasper's voice is closer, a low growl. You're making this fun, Elias. It's horrifying, the way he sounds excited. Lila's screams are sporadic now, like she's losing steam, but Theo's light is steady, tracking us. Marin's chanting feels like it's inside my skull, urging me to stop, to give in. I'm pulling Nora toward the road, praying for headlights, but Murphy Canyon's empty, just us and them. I'm thinking of that hiker in Utah who cut his own arm off to survive. Same stakes, same desperation. We can't stop, not with them this close. A rock whizzes past my head, grazing my ear, warm blood trickling down. Nora gasps, her eyes wide with horror. I spin around, and Jasper's there, maybe 20 feet away, his knife raised like he's aiming. Lila's beside him, her hands empty but her face twisted like she's enjoying this. Theo's filming, his light blinding me, and Marin's behind them, her chant louder, almost a scream. I swing the tire iron, not at them but to clear a path through the thorns. Nora's crying. Elias, we're not going to make it. I want to argue, but she's right. This feels like a death trap. My mind flashes to that news story about a camper attacked in Joshua Tree, left for dead. I won't let that be us. I grab Nora's arm, pulling her harder. We break through the brush, the road's asphalt gleaming under the moon. Hope surges, but then I hear the crunch of gravel, too many footsteps. They're all behind us, moving like a pack. I'm thinking of wolves, how they wear down prey, and it's terrifying how well it fits. Nora's flashlight dies, plunging us into near darkness. I'm navigating by moonlight, dragging her toward a ditch where we can hide. My heart's pounding so loud I barely hear Marin's chant, but it's there, worming into my brain. I'm regretting every second I didn't listen to Nora back at the fire. She's stumbling, her ankle giving out, and I'm half carrying her, my muscles screaming. The road's close, but so are they. I shove Nora into the ditch, diving in after her, dirt in my mouth. We're pressed against the earth, my hand over her mouth to quiet her sobs. Jasper's voice is right above us. "Where'd you go, buddy?" It's mocking, cruel, and it sends a chill down my spine. Theo's light sweeps over the ditch, missing us by inches. I'm clutching the tire iron, ready to swing if they spot us. Lila's muttering now, not screaming, her words slurred like she's drunk on whatever's driving them. I'm thinking of that documentary about mass hysteria, how groups lose it together, but this feels orchestrated, like the canyons pulling their strings. The air's heavy, oppressive, and I swear I see that carved symbol again on a rock nearby. We're holding our breath, the ditch's dirt cold against my skin. Jasper's pacing above, his boots crunching, and I hear the knife scraping against something. Maybe his belt, maybe a rock. It's a sound straight out of a horror flick, and it's messing with me. Nora's trembling, her hand gripping mine so tight it hurts. Theo's light moves away, but Marin's chanting doesn't stop, like it's anchoring them. I'm thinking of every mistake I made, trusting these guys, ignoring Nora, staying too long. If we get out, I'm never camping again. The road's 10 feet away, but it might as well be a mile with them this close. I'm planning our next move, maybe a sprint, but then I hear a new sound. Tires on asphalt, distant but coming closer. Headlights cut through the dark, a car approaching. My heart leaps, but I'm scared it's not enough. Jasper's still above us, muttering to Lila, who's giggling like this is a game. Theo's filming the road now, like he's expecting this. Marin's chant shifts, faster, urgent, and it's giving me goosebumps. I whisper to Nora, "When I say go, we run for the car." She nods, her eyes huge. The car's closer, maybe a pickup, its engine loud in the quiet. I'm thinking of that time I hitched a ride after my car broke down in Oceanside. Same hope, same fear it won't work out. Jasper's knife scrapes again, and I know we've got seconds before they check the ditch. My tire iron's ready, but I'm praying it's enough. The car's almost here, our only shot. We're crouched, ready to bolt, when Lila screams again, not angry but triumphant, like she's found us. The sound's so close it's paralyzing. I grab Nora, pulling her up, and we're running before I can think. The car's headlights blind me, but I'm waving the tire iron, yelling, "Help!" Jasper's right behind, his breath hot on my neck. Nora's limping bad, and I'm practically dragging her. The pickup slows, an older guy at the wheel, his face confused but alarmed. Theo's light is on us. Filming like this is his twisted finale. Marin's chanting peaks, and I swear the air vibrates. I'm thinking of every horror story where the rescue fails at the last second. We're so close, but Jasper's closer, his knife gleaming. I shove Nora toward the pickup's passenger side, banging on the door. The driver's yelling, "What's going on?" But there's no time to explain. Jasper grabs my jacket, yanking me back, and I swing the tire iron, connecting with his arm. He howls, dropping the knife, but Lila's on me now, clawing at my face. Her nails rip my cheek, blood warm and sticky. Nora's screaming, trying to open the door, but it's locked. The driver's fumbling, clearly freaked out. Theo's still filming, and Marin's chanting is deafening, like it's summoning something. I kick Lila off, my legs shaking, and bang on the window again. The driver unlocks it, and I shove Nora in, diving after her. Jasper's recovering, his eyes wild, and the canyon feels like it's screaming with him. The pickup's door slams shut, and I'm yelling, "Drive, drive." The driver, an older guy with a gray beard, floors it, tires screeching on Murphy Canyon Road. Nora's sobbing, curled against me, her ankle swollen. My face stings where Lila clawed me, blood dripping onto my shirt. Jasper's silhouette fades in the rear view, but he's not running anymore, just standing there, knife in hand, watching. Theo's light is still on, filming us as we escape. Marin's chanting fades, but it's burned into my brain, haunting and horrible. The driver's asking, "What the hell was that?" I can't answer. My mind's a mess, replaying every second of this nightmare. We're safe, but it doesn't feel like it. The canyon's still out there, and so are they. We're speeding towards San Diego's lights, the city a beacon of normalcy. Nora's clutching my hand, her breathing uneven. I'm trying to process what happened, my friends turning into monsters, the canyon's oppressive weight. The driver, Mike, says he's a local, heard stories about Murphy Canyon being off. He mentions a news report about hikers finding weird carvings last month, like the ones we saw. It's disturbing, like we stumbled into something bigger than us. I'm thinking of calling the cops, but what do I say? My friends try to kill us? It sounds insane. Nora's whispering. We should have left sooner. She's right, and I hate myself for it. My stubbornness almost got us killed. The pickup's cab smells like old coffee, grounding me, but my heart's still racing. Mike drops us at a gas station near I-15, his hands shaking as he hands me his number. Call if you need a witness, he says, his voice rough. I nod, but I'm distracted, checking Nora's ankle. It's bad, maybe sprained. The station's fluorescent lights are harsh, making everything feel too real. I'm thinking of those true crime podcasts about unexplained attacks, how survivors never feel safe again. We call a tow for the van, but I'm not going back to Murphy Canyon, not ever. My phone's got a signal now, and I'm tempted to text Jasper, demand answers, but Nora stops me. Don't, she says, her voice firm despite her tears. She's right, reaching out's a mistake. But part of me needs to know why they turned on us, what broke them. We're waiting for the tow, sitting on a curb, when I notice Nora's shaking, not just from fear, but cold. I give her my jacket, trying to be strong, but I'm falling apart. The gas station's empty, just a clerk watching us through the window. I'm replaying every moment. Jasper's knife, Lila's screams, Theo's filming, Marin's chanting. It's like they were possessed, but by what? The canyon? Something else? I remember a story about a cult in San Diego, back in the 90s, people losing it in the desert. This feels like that, but worse, because these were my friends. Nora's quiet, staring at the road, and I know she's thinking the same thing. We're alive, but we're not okay. My cheek's still bleeding, a reminder of how close we came to not making it. The tow truck arrives, and we climb in, heading to a motel. I'm exhausted, but sleep feels impossible. Nora's leaning on me, her breathing steadier, but her eyes are haunted. I'm kicking myself for ignoring the signs. Jasper's weird vibe, Lila's sketches, Theo's filming. I thought I could handle it, like that time I talked down a drunk guy at a bar. But this was different, terrifying, unstoppable. The tow driver's radio crackles with local news, a report about unusual activity. In Murphy Canyon, hikers finding more carvings. My stomach drops. Whatever we escaped, it's still out there. Nora whispers, we're never camping again. I nod, but deep down, I know the canyon's marked us, and that's a horror we'll carry forever. We check into a cheap motel, the kind with flickering neon signs. Nora's ankle needs ice, and I'm cleaning my face in the bathroom, the mirror showing a guy I barely recognize. The cuts sting, but it's the fear that's worse, gnawing at me. I'm thinking of every mistake, trusting those guys, staying too long, not checking the van sooner. Nora's on the bed, staring at the ceiling, and I know she's replaying it too. We don't talk about calling the cops. It feels pointless. What evidence do we have? A broken van and some scratches? The carvings, the chanting, the way they moved. It's all too crazy to explain. I'm starting to think the canyon did something to them, turned them into something else. It's a scary thought, but it fits. Morning comes, gray and heavy, like the canyon followed us. Nora's asleep, finally, but I'm up, scrolling my phone for news on Murphy Canyon. There's a post on X about a missing hiker last week, found dazed, muttering about voices in the canyon. It's too close to what we went through, and it's disturbing as hell. I'm tempted to drive back, confront Jasper, but that's suicide. Instead, I book us a bus back to Oceanside. The van's a loss, too many memories, too much horror. Nora wakes, her eyes red, and we don't talk much. We're alive, but it's not a victory. My biggest mistake was thinking I knew those people, that I could trust them. The canyon showed me I was wrong, and that truth's a tragedy I'll never shake. I'm sitting in the motel, staring out the window, when I see a pickup drive by, too much like Mike's. For a second, I think I see Jasper in the passenger seat, grinning. My heart stops, but it's just a stranger. Nora's packing, her movement slow, like she's carrying the canyon's weight too. We'll leave, but the horror's not over. It's in us now, in every shadow, every sound. I'm thinking of that time I saw a shark while surfing, how the fear lingered for months. This is worse, a scar that won't fade. The canyon's still out there, waiting, and so are they. Jasper, Lila, Theo, Marin. I don't know what they became, but I know we barely escaped. And that's the worst part. We got out, but we'll never be free. Okay. Now I want you to do a complete analysis of this story and see if there are any errors in coherence, etc. My name is Elena Vasquez. I'm 42 years old, and I live in Phoenix, Arizona. What was supposed to be a quiet weekend retreat to Murphy Canyon turned into a nightmare when I stumbled upon something I was never meant to see. The canyon has a dark history of illegal dumping, and some people will do anything to keep their secrets buried in the desert. I've been living in my converted Sprinter van for about 2 years now, ever since my husband passed away from cancer. The medical bills destroyed our savings, and honestly, I needed a complete change of scenery to deal with my grief. Vanlife gave me the freedom to travel for my freelance graphic design work while keeping my expenses minimal. I'd heard about Murphy Canyon from other Vanlifers in online groups. Everyone said it was perfect for those times when you needed complete solitude to work on big projects or just clear your head. I had a major client presentation due Monday, and my tiny Phoenix apartment was too distracting with neighbors and city noise constantly interrupting my creative flow. The drive from Phoenix to San Diego took about 6 hours, and I arrived at Murphy Canyon around 4 p.m. on Friday afternoon. My plan was simple: find a quiet spot with decent cell signal for uploading files, spend the weekend polishing my presentation materials, and drive back Sunday evening refreshed and ready for Monday's meeting. I'm not much of an outdoors person, if I'm being honest. My idea of camping involves having Wi-Fi and a good coffee maker, both of which my van's setup provides perfectly. I chose Murphy Canyon specifically because it offered the isolation I needed without being so remote that I'd lose all connectivity to the outside world. What drew me to this particular area was reading that it had a reputation for being relatively safe for solo female travelers. Other women had posted positive reviews about spending time there alone, which gave me confidence since I'm still pretty new to this whole solo van life thing and can get nervous in unfamiliar places. I found a decent spot about a quarter mile off the main trail, tucked behind some large rocks that provided natural privacy and wind protection. The location had a clear view of the sky from my cell signal booster, and the ground was level enough that I wouldn't be sleeping at an uncomfortable angle all weekend. My setup routine was pretty efficient by now: solar panels adjusted, workstation configured inside the van, coffee supplies organized for morning productivity. I was planning to get up early Saturday and really dive into perfecting my presentation graphics, taking advantage of the peaceful environment to do my best creative work. The first hint that something was off came when I was setting up my outdoor workspace and noticed what looked like fresh vehicle tracks leading deeper into the canyon, toward areas that didn't seem to have any legitimate camping or hiking access. But I figured it was probably just other van lifers exploring different spots. Saturday morning started perfectly. I was up at sunrise with my coffee, laptop charged and ready, working on my client's logo redesign with the kind of focus that only comes from complete solitude. The peaceful canyon environment was exactly what I'd hoped for. No distractions, just me and my creative work in nature. Around 10 a.m., I decided to take a break and explore the immediate area. I'd been sitting hunched over my laptop for hours and needed to stretch my legs. I grabbed my water bottle and decided to follow one of the smaller trails that branched off from where I'd parked, thinking a short hike would clear my head. The trail led deeper into the canyon than I'd expected, winding between rock formations and desert scrub. I was enjoying the exercise and the change of scenery when I started noticing things that seemed out of place. Pieces of plastic sheeting caught on bushes, strange chemical smells that didn't belong in a natural desert environment. Then I saw the tire tracks again, but this time they were much clearer and more extensive. These weren't casual camping tracks. They looked like heavy vehicles had been making regular trips into this area, possibly at night, when other people wouldn't see them. The tracks led toward a section of the canyon that was hidden from the main trails. My curiosity got the better of me, which I now realize was a huge mistake. I followed the tracks for maybe another quarter mile until I reached an area that was completely concealed by rock walls and dense brush. That's when I smelled something truly awful, a chemical stench mixed with something organic and rotting that made my stomach turn. I should have turned around right then, but instead I pushed through the brush to see what was causing the smell. What I found was a dumping ground, barrels, plastic containers, and piles of what looked like industrial waste, all hidden in this natural bowl in the canyon where nobody would stumble across it accidentally. Some of the containers were leaking, creating dark stains in the soil, and the smell was so strong I had to cover my nose with my shirt. This wasn't just casual littering. This was serious illegal dumping, the kind that companies pay big money to dispose of secretly because proper disposal would be too expensive or regulated. I took several photos with my phone, thinking I should report this to environmental authorities. That's when I heard vehicle engines in the distance, getting closer. My blood went cold as I realized someone was coming. Probably the same people who'd been dumping this stuff, and I was standing right in the middle of their illegal operation. I scrambled back through the brush as quietly as possible, trying to get away from the dumping site before whoever was coming could see me. But the sound of engines was getting closer fast, and I realized they were heading directly toward the area where I'd just been standing. This wasn't a coincidence. They were coming to dump more waste. From my hiding spot behind some rocks, I watched 3 pickup trucks pull into the hidden area. The drivers moved with the efficiency of people who'd done this many times before, immediately starting to unload barrels and containers from their truck beds. These weren't random criminals. This was an organized operation. One of the men had what looked like a radio or walkie-talkie, and I could hear him talking to someone about schedules and pickup times. They were discussing the next load and mentioning something about keeping the site clean, which apparently meant making sure no evidence was left where casual hikers might find it. I tried to back away quietly, but my foot slipped on some loose gravel, sending small rocks tumbling down the slope. All 3 men immediately stopped what they were doing and looked in my direction. One of them pointed directly at my hiding spot and said something I couldn't quite hear to the others. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure they could hear it. I stayed perfectly still, hoping they'd think it was just an animal or natural rock fall. But then I heard footsteps coming toward my position. They were actively searching for whoever had made the noise, and they were getting closer with each passing second. "Somebody's out there," one of them called to the others. "Check the perimeter. We can't have witnesses." The casual way he said witnesses made my blood run cold. These people clearly took their illegal operation seriously, and they weren't going to let some random hiker compromise their business. I could see one of them had pulled something from his truck. It looked like a hunting rifle. They weren't just worried about being reported to authorities. They were prepared to make sure nobody could report anything at all. I realized I was in immediate physical danger from people who had too much money at stake to let me walk away. The searcher was getting close enough that I could hear his breathing. I had maybe 30 seconds before he'd be close enough to spot me, and then I'd be trapped between him and the other 2 men with nowhere to run. I had to make a decision right now: stay hidden and hope he'd miss me, or make a break for it while I still had a chance. I waited until the searcher was looking away from my position, then made my move. I scrambled as quietly as possible toward a different section of rocks, trying to put more distance between myself and the dumping site. But the desert terrain made silent movement nearly impossible. Every step seemed to crunch on gravel or snap dry vegetation. "There!" I heard it again, one of them shouted, and suddenly all 3 were moving in my direction. I abandoned any attempt at stealth and started running, crashing through brush and leaping over rocks as I tried to get back to the main trail where my van was parked. The canyon terrain that had seemed so beautiful during my morning hike now became a deadly obstacle course. I was running on pure adrenaline, my heart hammering as I tried to navigate loose rocks and hidden gullies while moving fast enough to stay ahead of my pursuers. I could hear them behind me, not even trying to be quiet anymore. They were shouting to each other, coordinating their search pattern like they'd done this before. One of them was trying to cut me off by taking a parallel path, while the other 2 followed my direct route back toward the main trail. My lungs were burning and my legs felt like rubber, but I kept pushing forward. The thought of what might happen if they caught me gave me strength I didn't know I had. These weren't people who were just going to ask me to keep quiet about what I'd seen. They were treating this like a manhunt. The worst moment came when I realized I'd taken a wrong turn somewhere in my panic. The landscape didn't look familiar, and I couldn't see the main trail anywhere. I was lost in the canyon with 3 armed men hunting me, and I had no idea which direction would lead me back to safety and my van. I climbed up on a large rock formation, hoping to get my bearings and spot familiar landmarks. That's when I saw my van in the distance, but I also saw that one of the pickup trucks had driven around to the main trail and was positioned between me and my vehicle. They'd successfully cut off my escape route. From my elevated position, I could see the other 2 men were still following my trail on foot, getting closer by the minute. I was trapped between them and their partner who was guarding my van. I had to find another way out, but the canyon walls were steep and I didn't know if there were any other exits from this area. With my van blocked and pursuers closing in, I made a desperate decision to climb higher into the canyon walls, hoping to find a path that would lead me around their blockade. The rock climbing was treacherous, loose stones and steep angles that could send me tumbling if I made one wrong move. But the elevation gave me a crucial advantage. From up high, I could see a service road that connected to the canyon from a completely different direction, probably the route the dumpers normally use to access their site without being seen from the main camping areas. If I could reach that road, I might be able to flag down help or at least get to an area with cell phone signal. The climb down the other side of the ridge was terrifying. I was essentially rappelling down rock faces using nothing but finger holds and prayer, with a several hundred-foot drop below me if I slipped. But the alternative was facing 3 armed men who clearly had no intention of letting me leave with knowledge of their operation. I finally reached the service road just as the sun was starting to set. My hands were bloody from the rocks, my clothes were torn, and I was dehydrated and exhausted. But I was alive, and I had cell signal. I called 911 immediately and started walking toward what I hoped was the main highway. The police response was massive once I explained what I'd found. Environmental Crimes Task Force, FBI, local sheriff's department. They took the illegal dumping operation very seriously. It turned out to be connected to several construction companies that had been illegally disposing of contaminated soil and chemical waste for years. They arrested all 3 men at the site, plus several others connected to the dumping operation. The environmental damage was extensive: contaminated groundwater, poisoned soil, dead vegetation in a pattern that extended for miles underground. The cleanup costs were estimated in the millions of dollars. I had to testify in court months later, which was terrifying because these people had serious criminal connections and resources. The prosecution put me in a witness protection program temporarily, and I had to completely change my van life routes to avoid any possibility of retaliation from associates who weren't caught. The whole experience changed how I approach solo camping completely. I still live in my van and travel for work, but I stick to established campgrounds and popular areas where there are other people around. I learned that some of the most beautiful, isolated spots can hide the ugliest human activities, and sometimes curiosity can literally be deadly. My name is Trevor Montgomery. I'm 51 years old, and I live in Denver, Colorado. I've been a wildlife photographer for over 20 years, ever since I retired early from my software engineering career. My converted Airstream has been my mobile darkroom and base camp for capturing nature shots across the American West for the past 5 years. Murphy Canyon caught my attention through a photography forum where someone mentioned seeing rare desert kit foxes in the area. These nocturnal creatures are incredibly elusive, and getting quality shots of them would be a real feather in my cap. I'd been planning this trip for months, timing it with the new moon phase for optimal low-light photography conditions. I wasn't traveling completely alone. My daughter Sarah knew my exact itinerary and expected check-ins every 12 hours. At my age, I've learned that solo wilderness photography requires serious safety protocols. My van is equipped with satellite communication gear, emergency beacons, and enough supplies to last 2 weeks if something goes wrong. The drive from Denver took about 12 hours with stops, and I arrived at Murphy Canyon on a Tuesday afternoon in late October. I specifically chose a weekday to avoid weekend crowds that might scare away the wildlife I was hoping to photograph. The fall weather was perfect, cool nights that would encourage animal activity, and clear skies for star photography. My setup is pretty elaborate compared to most Vanlifers. I've got thousands of dollars worth of camera equipment, night vision scopes, motion-activated trail cameras, and a portable photo processing station. Wildlife photography isn't just a hobby for me. I sell prints and license images to nature magazines, so this gear is essential for my livelihood. I found an excellent spot about half a mile from the main trail, positioned where I could observe a natural water source that animals would likely visit after dark. The location offered good concealment for my van while providing clear sight lines for long-range photography across the canyon floor. My research indicated that desert kit foxes typically emerge around 9 p.m. and are most active between midnight and 3 a.m. I plan to spend the first night setting up remote cameras and scouting locations, then dedicate the following nights to serious photography sessions with my high-end telephoto lenses. The first evening was incredibly productive. I identified several game trails, found fresh scat from multiple species, and positioned 3 trail cameras in strategic locations. Everything pointed to this being an active wildlife corridor, exactly what I'd hoped to find for capturing authentic desert ecosystem photographs. Wednesday night was when I got my first real photos, but they weren't of the wildlife I'd been expecting. Around 11 p.m., while reviewing images from my trail cameras, I noticed something unusual in the background of several shots. There were lights moving in a distant part of the canyon, artificial lights where there shouldn't be any human activity. At first I assumed it was other campers or maybe Park Service personnel doing late-night maintenance. But the light patterns were too regular and organized to be casual camping. They moved in systematic sweeps, like people were searching for something specific or conducting some kind of organized operation in the darkness. My curiosity as a photographer got the better of me. I grabbed my camera with the longest telephoto lens and hiked to a ridge position where I could get a better view of whatever was happening. The night vision scope revealed at least 6 people moving through a specific area of the canyon with flashlights and what looked like metal detectors. Through my 600mm lens, I could see they were wearing matching dark clothing and moving with military-style precision. This definitely wasn't a casual group of treasure hunters or archaeology enthusiasts. They had vehicles parked in concealed positions and were clearly trying to avoid detection while conducting their search operation. I started taking photos, thinking this might be some kind of law enforcement operation that could make for interesting documentary shots. My camera's high ISO capability allowed me to capture clear images even in the low light conditions, and I got several good shots of their search patterns and equipment. That's when I noticed something that made my blood run cold. One of the searchers was carrying what was unmistakably a human skull, holding it up to show the others before placing it carefully in a collection bag. They weren't searching for treasure or conducting archaeology. They were collecting human remains. I kept photographing, my professional instincts overriding my growing fear. Through the telephoto lens, I could see they had several bags that appeared to contain bones and other remains. This was either a legitimate forensic recovery operation or something much more sinister that I definitely shouldn't be witnessing. The disturbing realization hit me that if this was an illegal body disposal or evidence tampering operation, and they discovered I was photographing them, I would become a serious problem that needed to be eliminated. But I couldn't stop taking pictures. This might be evidence of major crimes that authorities needed to see. Around 1 a.m., one of the searchers pointed a flashlight directly toward my position on the ridge. I immediately dropped flat and turned off my camera's LCD display, but I was terrified they'd spotted the lens reflection or heard the camera's shutter. For several minutes, the flashlight beam swept back and forth across the rocks where I was hiding. I heard radio chatter in the distance. They were definitely communicating with each other through some kind of coordinated system. The professional nature of their operation was becoming more apparent and more frightening. These weren't random criminals. They had training, equipment, and organization that suggested serious backing. Through my night vision scope, I watched them change their search pattern. Instead of focusing on the ground, they were now scanning the surrounding ridges and elevated positions. They were actively looking for observers, which meant they were aware that their activities might be monitored and were prepared to deal with witnesses. 2 of them started moving in my direction, leaving the main group and heading toward the ridge where I was positioned. My heart was pounding so hard I was afraid they might hear it. I had maybe 10 minutes before they'd reach my location, and the terrain didn't offer many escape routes in the darkness. I made the decision to try reaching my van, but that meant exposing myself while crossing open ground. The alternative was staying put and hoping they wouldn't find me, but their systematic search pattern suggested they were thorough and patient. If they suspected someone was watching, they'd keep looking until they found me. I started moving as quietly as possible, using photography techniques I'd learned for approaching wildlife. Slow, deliberate movements, staying low, avoiding sudden motions that might catch peripheral vision. But moving quickly enough to stay ahead of the searchers while remaining silent was nearly impossible on the rocky terrain. The worst moment came when I accidentally kicked a loose stone that went clattering down the slope. The sound echoed across the canyon like a gunshot, and immediately I saw multiple flashlight beams swing toward my position. There was no question now. They knew someone was out there, and they were actively hunting for me. I abandoned stealth and started running toward my van, crashing through brush and leaping over rocks in the darkness. Behind me, I could hear shouting as they coordinated their pursuit. Radio chatter was increasing, and I realized they were calling in additional people to help with the search. This was turning into a full-scale manhunt. The run back to my van was a nightmare of stumbling through unfamiliar terrain in near-total darkness. I was using my phone's flashlight, which helped me avoid major obstacles, but also made me visible to my pursuers. Every few seconds I could hear them getting closer, their radio communications becoming more urgent and organized. When I finally reached my van, I was horrified to discover that my tires had been slashed. They'd found my campsite while I was out photographing their operation, and they'd made sure I couldn't simply drive away. I was trapped in the middle of nowhere with people who were willing to kill to protect whatever they were doing in that canyon. My satellite communication device was inside the van, but I realized that calling for help would take time I didn't have. The searchers were maybe 5 minutes behind me, and even if I could reach authorities, it would be hours before anyone could respond to such a remote location. I needed a different escape plan. I grabbed my most essential camera equipment. The memory cards with the photos I'd taken were worth more than my life if they contained evidence of murders or body disposal. I also took my emergency water, GPS device, and satellite beacon, then abandoned the van and started hiking toward what I hoped was the main highway. The canyon terrain was treacherous at night, but I had no choice but to keep moving. Behind me, I could see flashlight beams converging on my abandoned van. I heard angry shouting when they discovered I wasn't inside, followed by more radio chatter as they organized a wider search pattern to track me down. My wildlife photography experience actually helped during the escape. I knew how to move quietly, how to use terrain for concealment, and how to navigate by stars and landmarks. But I was also 51 years old and not in the best physical condition for a life-or-death chase through rough desert terrain. The most terrifying moment came when I heard dogs barking in the distance. They'd brought in tracking dogs, which meant my scent trail would lead them directly to me no matter how well I tried to hide. I had maybe an hour head start before the dogs would catch up to my position. I activated my emergency satellite beacon, knowing it would bring help, but also knowing the signal could be detected by anyone with the right equipment. It was a calculated risk. Either rescue would arrive before my pursuers found me, or the beacon would make me easier to track down and eliminate. The satellite beacon worked exactly as designed. Within 2 hours, I heard helicopters approaching, and search and rescue teams found me about 3 miles from my abandoned van. I was dehydrated, exhausted, and terrified, but alive and still carrying the memory cards with potentially crucial evidence. The authorities took my story very seriously, especially when they saw the photographs I'd captured. The images clearly showed organized body disposal or evidence tampering activities, and the professional nature of the operation suggested connections to major criminal organizations or even government cover-ups. Federal agents secured the canyon area within hours, but they found nothing. The site had been completely cleaned, my van had been burned to destroy any evidence I might have left behind, and there was no trace of the activities I'd photographed. Whoever these people were, they had the resources and organization to disappear completely. The investigation revealed that Murphy Canyon had been the subject of rumors for years, stories about missing persons, unexplained disappearances, and bodies that were never found. My photographs provided the first concrete evidence that someone was actively using the area for illegal disposal of human remains. Several federal agencies got involved, treating this as potential evidence of serial killings, organized crime body disposal, or even government black operations cover-ups. The level of organization and resources displayed by the people I'd encountered suggested this wasn't just local criminal activity. Despite extensive investigation, no arrests were ever made. The people in my photographs were never identified, and the agencies involved eventually classified the case in ways that prevented me from learning the final outcome. I got the distinct impression that my evidence had uncovered something much bigger and more dangerous than simple murder. I had to enter witness protection temporarily, and I've never returned to that area of California. My insurance covered the van, but I lost thousands of dollars worth of specialized photography equipment that couldn't be replaced. More importantly, I lost my sense of security about solo wilderness photography. The experience taught me that some secrets are buried in remote places specifically because people will kill to keep them hidden. Nature photography had always been my peaceful escape from the complexities of human civilization, but Murphy Canyon showed me that even the most isolated wilderness areas can hide humanity's darkest activities. I am Rebecca, and I live in Sacramento, California. What should have been a simple overnight stop in Murphy Canyon became a nightmare when I witnessed something that powerful people desperately wanted to keep secret. Sometimes being in the wrong place at the wrong time can cost you everything, and some conspiracies run deeper than you could ever imagine. My name is Rebecca Chun, 29 years old, and I've been living out of my converted Honda Pilot for about 8 months now. It's not the most spacious van life setup, but it works for my budget and lifestyle as a freelance journalist. I mainly cover environmental issues and corporate corruption for various online publications, which means I'm constantly traveling to research stories. I'd been investigating illegal water usage by agricultural corporations in Southern California, following leads about companies that were violating drought restrictions while small farmers went bankrupt. The story had taken me all over the region, interviewing sources and documenting evidence of regulatory capture and environmental crimes. Murphy Canyon wasn't originally part of my investigation, but a source had mentioned it as a meeting location. Someone with inside information about water rights violations wanted to meet there, claiming they had documents that would blow the whole story wide open. Anonymous sources always make me nervous, but this person had already provided accurate information that checked out. My Honda isn't exactly built for serious off-road camping, but I've made it work with a basic sleeping setup and portable power station. I do most of my writing and research using coffee shop Wi-Fi, but sometimes I need isolated locations for sensitive interviews where sources feel safer talking without potential surveillance. The drive to Murphy Canyon took about 4 hours from Sacramento, and I arrived around 3 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon. My source had specified a meeting time of 8 p.m. at coordinates they provided, which corresponded to a secluded area about 2 miles from the main camping areas. I'm always cautious about meeting unknown sources in remote locations, especially when investigating powerful corporate interests. I'd shared my location with my editor and had a check-in protocol established. If I didn't contact him by noon Friday, he'd alert authorities and provide them with all my research notes. The canyon was more beautiful than I'd expected, rugged desert landscape with interesting rock formations and wildlife. Under different circumstances, it would have been a peaceful place to spend a few days working on articles, but I was focused on the upcoming meeting and what information my source might provide. I spent the afternoon reviewing my notes and preparing questions for the interview. The water rights story was potentially huge, involving millions of dollars in illegal diversions and regulatory officials who were clearly being bought off by agricultural conglomerates. If my source had the documentation they claimed, it could expose corruption at the highest levels. The meeting location was further into the canyon than I'd expected, requiring a hike of about half a mile from where I could safely park my Honda. I arrived at the coordinates 15 minutes early, wanting to scope out the area and make sure I wasn't walking into some kind of trap or setup. The spot was perfect for a clandestine meeting, completely hidden from any trails, surrounded by rock formations that would muffle voices, and with clear sight lines in all directions so we could see if anyone else was approaching. My source had clearly chosen the location carefully for maximum privacy and security. At exactly 8 p.m., a woman emerged from behind some boulders. She was maybe 45 years old, professionally dressed despite the remote location, and carrying a briefcase that looked expensive and official. She introduced herself only as Maria and immediately began scanning the area nervously, like she expected to be followed. Maria's information was incredible. Detailed financial records showing systematic water theft by 3 major agricultural corporations, along with documentation of payments to county supervisors and state regulatory officials. She claimed to be a former accountant for one of the companies who'd been secretly copying files for months before quitting. We spent about an hour going through the documents while I took photos with my phone and asked follow-up questions. The evidence was damning. Clear proof of criminal conspiracy involving millions of gallons of stolen water and hundreds of thousands of dollars in bribes. This was the smoking gun I'd been searching for. That's when we heard vehicles approaching in the distance. Maria immediately went pale and started stuffing documents back into her briefcase. "They found me," she whispered, and I could see real terror in her eyes. "You need to get out of here right now. If they see you with me, you're dead too." I wanted to ask what she meant, but there wasn't time. We could see headlights moving through the canyon, multiple vehicles that seemed to be searching for something specific. Maria pressed a flash drive into my hand and told me it contained copies of everything, then started moving toward a different exit route. The last thing she said was, "Don't trust anyone in authority with this. They're all bought and paid for." Then she disappeared into the darkness, leaving me alone with evidence that apparently powerful people were willing to kill for. I realized I was in way over my head. I made it back to my Honda just as the first vehicle came into view, a black SUV with tinted windows that looked like something federal agents would drive. But Maria's warning echoed in my mind, and I decided not to assume these were legitimate law enforcement officers. I stayed hidden behind some rocks and watched. 3 more SUVs arrived within minutes, and 8 men in dark suits got out. They moved with military precision, immediately fanning out to search the area where I'd just been meeting with Maria. These weren't local police or even regular federal agents. They had the bearing and equipment of specialized tactical teams. Through my camera's telephoto lens, I could see they had sophisticated communication gear and what looked like tracking equipment. They weren't just searching randomly. They knew exactly where the meeting had taken place and were looking for specific evidence. Someone had been monitoring our communication or following Maria. The most chilling moment came when I heard one of them speaking into his radio. "The asset is missing, but we have evidence of contact. Initiate containment protocol for any potential witnesses." The clinical way he said it made my blood freeze. These people weren't here to arrest anyone. They were here to eliminate problems. I watched them systematically search the meeting area, using metal detectors and other equipment to look for anything Maria might have dropped or hidden. Their thoroughness was terrifying, and I realized that if I'd left anything behind, a pen, a piece of paper, anything with my fingerprints, they'd find it. That's when I saw the thermal imaging device. One of the men was scanning the surrounding area with equipment that would detect body heat, looking for anyone who might still be hiding nearby. I was maybe 200 yards from their position, but thermal imaging could easily spot me at that distance. I had to move immediately, but my Honda was parked in a location they'd definitely search. I grabbed my laptop bag with the flash drive and started moving away from the meeting area, staying low and using rock formations for concealment. Behind me, I could hear radio chatter as they coordinated their search pattern. The horrible realization hit me that Maria was probably already dead. These people had found her, taken her documents, and now they were making sure no witnesses survived to tell anyone what they'd seen. I wasn't just a journalist who'd stumbled onto a story. I was a target who needed to be eliminated. I managed to reach my Honda without being detected, but starting the engine would immediately reveal my location to the search team. I had to make a decision: try to drive out quietly and hope they didn't notice, or abandon my vehicle and escape on foot through terrain I didn't know in complete darkness. I chose to risk driving, figuring that getting back to populated areas was my best chance of survival. I started the engine and immediately began driving without headlights, using only the dim glow of my phone's flashlight to navigate the rough trail back toward the main road. Within minutes, I saw headlights behind me, multiple vehicles that were definitely following my route. They'd heard my engine or spotted my movement, and now I was in a high-speed chase through canyon terrain that my Honda definitely wasn't designed for. The suspension was bottoming out on rocks, and I could hear something scraping underneath. My phone had no signal, so I couldn't call for help or even let my editor know what was happening. I was completely on my own, being pursued by people with superior vehicles and training through unfamiliar territory. My only advantage was desperation and the element of surprise. The chase continued for about 20 minutes before my Honda finally gave up. The engine started overheating and making horrible noises, and I could see steam coming from under the hood. I was still miles from the main highway, and my pursuers were getting closer with every passing second. I grabbed my laptop bag and abandoned the vehicle, starting to run through the desert on foot. Behind me, I could hear vehicles stopping and doors slamming as they reached my abandoned Honda. Radio chatter was increasing, and I knew they'd be tracking me on foot within minutes. The thermal imaging equipment meant I couldn't hide anywhere. They'd be able to follow my heat signature even in complete darkness. My only hope was reaching some kind of populated area or finding help before they caught up to me. But I was miles from civilization, exhausted, and running out of options. The most terrifying moment came when I heard dogs barking in the distance. They brought tracking dogs, which meant even if I could somehow evade the thermal imaging, the dogs would follow my scent trail directly to wherever I tried to hide. I was being hunted by professionals with unlimited resources. I ran for what felt like hours, stumbling through desert terrain in the darkness, while helicopters circled overhead with searchlights. The manhunt had escalated beyond anything I could have imagined. This wasn't just corporate security trying to recover stolen documents. This was a full military-style operation to eliminate witnesses. My salvation came from an unexpected source. A Border Patrol agent on routine patrol spotted me flagging down traffic on a remote highway around 3 a.m. I was dehydrated, bloody from falling on rocks, and barely coherent, but I managed to convince him that people were trying to kill me and that I had evidence of major corruption. The agent took me seriously, especially when we could see helicopter searchlights still scanning the canyon area. He called for backup and took me to a secure location where I could contact my editor and transfer copies of Maria's files to multiple secure servers before anyone could stop me. The story I eventually published exposed the water theft conspiracy exactly as Maria had documented, but it also revealed something much darker. The people who'd hunted me weren't just corporate security. They were connected to a private military contractor that specialized in problem resolution for major agricultural and energy companies. Maria's body was found 3 days later, officially ruled a hiking accident. The cause of death was listed as a fall from a cliff, but I knew she'd been murdered to keep her quiet. The flash drive she'd given me contained not just water theft documentation, but evidence of other whistleblowers who'd met similar fates. The federal investigation that followed my article resulted in several arrests, but the highest-level officials escaped prosecution through legal technicalities and political connections. The private military contractor simply changed names and continued operating, and the agricultural companies paid fines that were tiny compared to their illegal profits. I had to relocate and change my identity temporarily due to death threats that continued for months after publication. My Honda was found burned to destroy any evidence, and I lost everything I owned except my laptop and the clothes I was wearing during the escape. The experience taught me that some stories are too dangerous to pursue alone, and that corporate power in America extends far beyond legal boundaries. Environmental journalism had always seemed like relatively safe investigative work, but Murphy Canyon showed me that when billions of dollars are at stake, whistleblowers and journalists become expendable obstacles to be eliminated.